Jewish law prohibits any work on Shabbat. Activities such as doing business, spending money, shopping, housework, driving, using electricity, or even using the phone are discouraged.
Like, I hear stories for some people that actually follow it, they won't even use the elevator. They'll have to take the stairs because they can't use electricity. They can't use electricity.
Why not electricity? Hey guys, welcome back to Muslim Minds. Today we're going to react to a video called Judaism Explained, and it's from the channel
Cogito.
Cogito.
If there's any Jewish people here, this is like the first Jewish video we watch, so please make sure to subscribe and leave any comments. We'd like to, learn more about it and meet you guys.
All right, let's check it out.
Judaism, at 4,000 years old, is one of the oldest monotheistic religions, and the granddaddy of Christianity and Islam. But even though its teachings helped create the world's two most popular religions, many people don't know what Jews actually believe. What is the Torah? What's a covenant? And why don't people in the Middle East worship mermen anymore? Well, let's find out. Judaism developed here in the Eastern Mediterranean over the last 4,000-ish years. Today, there are about 15 million Jews, making it the 10th most popular religion on earth. Right, let's jump straight into their beliefs. 1. The Tanakh. Tanakh is the Hebrew name for the Hebrew Bible, known to most English speakers as the Old Testament, but obviously they don't call it that since they don't recognize the New Testament. The Tanakh is actually a trilogy, and the word Tanakh is made up of the names of the three sections of the Hebrew Bible. T for Torah, N for Nevi'im, and K for Ketuvim.
So Torah is religious scripture, Nevi'im is like tales of the prophets, and then I think the last portion is like kind of just legislation, rules, laws, kind of political matters.
The first section, the Torah, is the most sacred book of the Jewish people. The Torah consists of the 5 books shown here and is sometimes called the 5 books of Moses. Let's summarize this very long and very sacred book in a few paragraphs. Should be easy. In the beginning, God creates the world in 6 days and then has a deserved rest on the 7th. Later on, God starts talking to a guy named Abraham the Hebrew.
So that's something we as Muslims don't believe, that God needed to rest. So that's something Jewish people believe?
I think when they say on that day God rested,
he just stopped? Or
it
what?
could be like that he just stopped. I'm not too sure, but that's what I would immediately right off the bat assume. Not that he needed to rest because God is all powerful. He doesn't need to rest. But it means that he rested on the 7th day, like he concluded.
Well, I think Jewish people do think he rested. Don't they? That's why he said it. I mean, if any Jewish people are watching, what does that mean?
Maybe, I don't know. That's just my assumption.
And it's in the Old Testament too, which Christians believe.
Yeah.
So,
and also the whole idea about being made in like certain amount of days, 6 days. It's not 6 days. It's just like the translation, but the original language in Hebrew, it's like the word is for periods of time. Like for example, in Arabic, the word that we use for the days for creation is yom. But yom does not mean like a 24-hour day. It just means like a period of time.
He tells Abraham to leave his home in Mesopotamia and go to a land called Canaan, which is here. God makes a deal or covenant with Abraham, promising,
I will make of thee a great nation,
and offers
the whole land of Canaan
to him and his descendants. To seal this special covenant, God said unto Abraham,
every man-child among you shall be circumcised.
I assume Abraham was like, we're going to do what now?
Ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you.
Circumcision was a symbol literally cut into the flesh of the Jewish people to show their covenant with God, and has been done by every Jewish male for thousands of years. The covenant is extremely important in Judaism. Later, Abraham's grandson, called
I think those 4 letters in the sky are the Yod, He, Vod, He. I'm probably saying it completely wrong, but that's like the Tetragrammaton, where they believe like this is like the holiest name of God, his true name, but we don't know how to pronounce it anymore. People say Yahweh, but that's like a guess.
is extremely important in Judaism. Later, Abraham's grandson, called Jacob, literally wrestles with God or an angel of some sort for an entire night.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, so Christians will look into these passages where it says, like Jacob wrestled with the Lord. But oftentimes when God is speaking about himself being present, or like Adonai, for example, is a word used for God, it doesn't necessarily mean that God himself. It also relates to an agent of the Lord or an angel being sent by God as well, which is what he just said, that it doesn't necessarily have to be God himself. It could be an angel or like some messenger from the Lord.
So from then on, Jacob will be called Israel, one that struggles with God. Jacob/Israel has 12 sons, and their descendants will become known as the children of Israel, or Israelites, and give their name to the land of Canaan, now known as Israel. The children of Israel would be enslaved in Egypt, but then one of them, called Moses, would, under God's guidance, lead the Israelites out of Egypt. Moses and his people arrive at Mount Sinai, and here God gives Moses the entire Torah, which contains 613 mitzvah, or commandments, the most famous of which...
This is one point that I wanted to talk about, which is like, so Muslims claim that these original revelations brought to Moses, and even Jesus, whatever messages they were preaching, no longer is in existence, because people over time change the religion or write their own scriptures. Like, for example, we would say the Dead Sea Scrolls being 1,400 years, 500 years after Moses, that's a huge problem. We cannot verify that Moses wrote the Torah or that the scriptures alongside the Torah are authentic, right? And it's because of things like this. You have, even in the presence of Moses, his community wanted to build a golden cow and worship it. Even modern day in Christianity, for example, you have several people, they'll make a new Protestant branch, and like it's almost at times a completely different theology, right? So you have Christianity developing in its theologies. You have Judaism doing it from its earliest days. So we see that humans have a problem with holding down to what has been revealed and over time changing it. So this is why as Muslims we think it's logical and rational that yes, it's been changed over time. So God has continuously sent prophets and messengers, and we believe the final prophet to be Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who brought the final revelation. So I think that's just an important point people tend to miss out, that humans do innovate change and they're stubborn.
Is the 10 Commandments, written on 2 stone tablets. This new covenant requires Jews to worship only this God and to follow his commandments. In return, God will bless the Jewish people and make them a holy nation living in the Promised Land, which is Israel. The Israelites would eventually form a kingdom, and one of their kings, Solomon, builds a holy temple in Jerusalem, which houses the Ark of the Covenant and becomes the sacred heart of Jewish worship. Ironically enough, Solomon's kingdom would cut itself in two. Israel, populated by 10 tribes descended from the sons of Jacob in the north, and Judah, populated by the other 2 tribes, primarily the Judah in the south. In 722 BCE, the Assyrians conquered Israel, leaving Judah as the sole surviving Jewish kingdom, which is why this guy, Judah, a random son of Jacob, and not even the one with the dazzling coat of many colours, gave the religion of Judaism and the Jews their name. In 586 BCE, the Babylonians conquered Judah, demolished the Holy Temple, and sent the people into exile and slavery in Babylon. The destruction of the Holy Temple and the Babylonian exile is a heartbreaking historical event for Jewish people. But then, in 539 BCE, along came Cyrus with his big Persian army and cool hat.
Cyrus the Lad. It's a nice name.
He wrecks the Babylonians, frees the Jews, and rebuilds the Holy Temple. And that concludes our retelling of the Tanakh. It is foundational to all Jewish belief, and my summary barely scratches the surface. So you can go read more by checking out the links in the description, or just waiting until I make a video just about that. In 70 CE, the Romans destroyed the Holy Temple, again, and sent the people into another exile. The Jews would move out across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East, forming a diaspora, which periodically suffered persecutions, pogroms, and genocides from their neighbours. This 2000-ish year exile is considered to have lasted up until 1947, with the partitioning of Palestine and the creation of the modern state of Israel in 1948. Now, that was a very brief summary of 2,000 years of very complex history, so please bear that in mind. 2. God. So Abraham lived in a world that believed in many, many gods. You had your Marduks, your Nergals, you even had your Dagons. Everyone loves a Dagon. Look at him, fancy merman. But Abraham believed in one God, an eternal, all-powerful, all-knowing creator of the universe and the source of all morality. He has no children.
And I think that's kind of telling, because Abraham would not have an incentive to do that. unless he was, like, for example, truthful, because his community at the time were paganistic. Monotheism was not a known practice. So for Abraham to do that is kind of, I think, it's against the grain and would not offer him any benefit. It would just make him an outcast.
He has no rivals and he has no equals. This is known as monotheism, and Judaism would spread this concept across the ancient world, acting as the origin for both Christianity and Islam. Today, nearly everyone in this region follows a monotheistic religion, and merman worship has dropped significantly. The names of God used most in the Tanakh are Elohim and the Tetragrammaton, which is honestly one of the coolest words ever. The Tetragrammaton is the letters YHWH. The actual pronunciation of YHWH was lost thousands of years ago. Today it is sometimes pronounced as Yahweh, but that's just one theory. Many Orthodox Jews will not actually say the name out loud and will say Hashem, the name, or Adonai, my Lord, instead. Many Orthodox Jews won't even write words like God down as a sign of respect, and will use something like G-D instead. The Jewish God also takes an active interest in human affairs and interacts with humans on earth. Humans can develop a personal relationship with this God. God granted humanity free will, and they, like Jacob, can wrestle with God and find and relate to God in their own...
This is what I find very odd about Christianity, is that they kind of make God, the Father, kind of disconnected from mankind, and the only way to reach him is through the sacrifice of Jesus. So God is requiring a sacrifice of Jesus in order for you to kind of be accepted by him, right? But in Judaism, like, the sacrifices were offered as a commodity, right? To right your wrongs with God. And it would oftentimes be in sacrifices of animals or even burnt offerings. So it's not necessarily that there had to be like a torturous sacrifice and a suffering animal. It was just your commodity. You're offering something to God. It's a gesture. You're sacrificing something for him.
Yeah.
So,
and I like how they show reverence to even God's name. Yeah. It's not something like we, even as Muslims, we don't take God's name in vain. We don't just swear upon Allah to everything. But it's pretty cool to see them stick to that.
And you can see rigorously monotheistic, Elohim, Adonai. These are all words that are speaking about one being. Again, like now, Trinitarian Christians will say that those three are one God. But what makes it hard for us as Muslims to kind of see that point of view is that, there's not an analogy you can use to describe the Trinity. Most Christians that we have spoken to that actually know what the Trinitarian doctrine upholds say that it's heretical to try to describe the Trinity in an analogous kind of way, because all analogies fail to accurately describe the Trinity. And then the fact that all the three persons are fully God, but they're different from one another, that's kind of like a clash. Like, if they're fully God, then they should be each other. If they're fully God, they're all fully God, but they're not each other. And then you see a difference of office between like the Father and the Son, for example. So is it really equal? So I think these are like concerns that Judaism completely rejects, right?
Personal way. 3. The world to come. The Hebrew Bible barely mentions heaven or hell. Heaven is kind of just a place where God lives. It does mention a place called Sheol, but it's kind of just a vague underworld where souls go after death. It doesn't give any details. But the Bible does make it certain that the soul lives on after you die. When Abraham dies, for example, the Bible says he breathed his last, dying at a good, ripe age, old and content, and he was gathered to his people. The Bible describes a bunch of different characters being gathered to their people, and sinners being cut off from their people. So while the body returns to the earth, the human soul goes somewhere to live with their ancestors. Jews accept that they don't know what the afterlife will be like, or what its rewards will be, but they think it will be based on the kind of life they lived on earth. So they try and follow God's path and commandments as closely as possible, because even if they don't know what rewards they'll receive in the afterlife, they know following God's commandments here on earth will make this world better. Many Jews try to act with tzedakah, or justice or charity. Tzedakah comes from the Torah, which says,
"Thou shalt not..."
Sounds like zakat. Yeah, sounds pretty similar.
"Wholly reap the corners of thy field, neither shalt thou gather every grape of thy vineyard, thou shalt leave them for the poor and the stranger."
Today, many Jews donate 10% of their income to the needy as part of tzedakah. 4. The Messiah. Many Jews today and in the past have hoped for the coming of the Mashiach, or Messiah, which is prophesied in the Tanakh. The Messiah is a Jewish leader that will bring about the Messianic era. They will rebuild the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, bring all the Jews back into the Promised Land, which will bring about the perfection of the world and an end to all hunger, war, and suffering. When the Messiah comes, every Jew who ever lived will be literally resurrected. They will then return to Jerusalem to be present when God creates a new heaven on earth. This is why Jewish law demands that Jews must be buried with any amputated limbs they lost in life. Jewish law also forbids cremation, all to keep the physical body intact for when it is resurrected by God after the arrival of the Messiah. For Jews, the Messiah has obviously not yet arrived because there is still suffering and inequality in the world. 5. The Talmud. So we already saw the Tanakh.
But you see, I'll just want to mention that there's no kind of idea in Judaism that the Messiah will be God. Right?
Oh,
That
like
the
in
Messiah
for
is
Christianity.
God. Yeah. Like, there's no kind of indication of that. That he'll be a figure that comes and kind of brings peace on the world. And I think according to like huge rabbinic figures like Maimonides, he's like a respected Jewish rabbi. He even says that Moses is the greatest of all like humans, people. And I think most Jews actually believe in that Moses was even greater than the Messiah.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
It's interesting they think all Jews will be resurrected, though.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
How would that work?
I think it's
like
like
all come back.
Yeah, ushering an era of peace.
It's like hundreds of millions of people.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I've actually never heard of that, but that's very interesting.
Another book is also extremely important to the Jews, the Talmud. The Talmud is a collection of different books and is over 10 million words long and covers 38 volumes. It is a
10 million words?
Yeah, but
Whoa.
the Talmud is it's like commentaries as well. Like they even talk about Jesus burning in hell, and like it's like very descriptive. Like they say like
the Talmud.
Yeah, like this like Jesus is burning in like a pool of like excrement. Burning.
This is
excrement.
after Jesus came.
It's like commentary, I believe, over their history. So like when Jesus came, later on, writings developed about Jesus to paint him in a bad light. Like he is burning in hell and he's a false Messiah. But obviously, there's no way for them to confirm that he's burning in hell. It's just commentary writing. It's not revelation. It's just like
massive collection of commentary on the Torah and on itself about how the Torah and its commandments should be interpreted. It's filled with debate, legal interpretations, history, ethics, philosophy, and legends. Within a few lines, you can see rabbis that lived centuries apart debating a topic in the Talmud. It's pretty interesting. It provides the foundation for Jewish law and is a guidebook for Jewish life. So those are some of Judaism's beliefs. But Judaism is more than a religion. It's also a people, nation, culture, and civilization, but not a race. There are black, Asian, and white Jews. There are people who were born Jewish and people who convert to Judaism. There are atheist, agnostic, and a buff.
Isn't it true though? You can't really convert to Judaism because you have to be from like the Jewish people. And I've heard, like, if you go to, there's many stories.
Like God's chosen covenant.
Yeah. If you try to go to like a Jewish place, they're not gonna want you to become Jewish.
Well, so there are some strains of Judaism that believe that you can't convert, and that if you follow the Noahidic laws, if you're a Gentile, then you're safe. And the Noahidic laws, I believe, are like just a bunch of commandments for those who are Gentiles. If they follow, then they will also be saved, or something like that. I'm not too well versed on it. It's just something that is in my memory.
Buffet of different levels of religious Jews. According to Jewish law, a Jew is a child born of a Jewish mother, or a person who converts to Judaism. Some modern Jewish denominations also now accept descent through the father. Since the medieval period, there have been two major groups of Jewish people, Ashkenazi and Sephardi. The Ashkenazi are the Jewish community that developed in Central and Eastern Europe. They speak Yiddish, a combination of Hebrew and the languages of Central Europe. Yiddish words like bubkis, chutzpah, and klutz are familiar in English-speaking pop culture because most Jewish immigrants to the United States were Ashkenazi. The Sephardi Jews are descendants of the Jews of Spain and those who fled from Spain to other Mediterranean countries and North Africa. They have their own language, Ladino, a combination of Hebrew and Old Spanish, but unfortunately this language is under serious threat of extinction. There are also communities of Jews who do not fall into these two categories, such as the Jews of Iraq and Iran, Yemen, Ethiopia, China, and Georgia, along with many others. All these different groups make up the diverse range of Jewish belief and culture. What many Americans and Europeans think of as Jewish culture or Jewish food is really Ashkenazi culture, and Central and Eastern European food adapted to Jewish kosher laws. An Ashkenazi will eat schmaltz herring, while a Sephardi will enjoy couscous. An Ashkenazi will celebrate with a glass of schnapps. A Sephardi will go for some arak. Ashkenazis call Saturday Shabbos, Sephardis call it Shabbat. Before the Second World War, about 9 million Jews lived in Europe, 5 million in the Americas, 800,000 in Asia, 600,000 in Africa. It was just above 15 million in total. About 6 million Jews were systematically murdered during the Shoah, the Hebrew term for the Holocaust. The immigration, expulsion, and extermination of Jews from their old heartlands during the 20th century has made North America and Israel home to the majority of modern Jews. Today there are many different denominations of Jews, ranging from Jewish atheists to
Imagine
Orthodox.
how many more Jews there would be if that didn't happen.
But why were there only 15 million before?
Well, back then, even
That's not even a lot.
But let's look. Well,
Because Muslims,
how many
Jewish,
Muslims are back then as well?
Jewish people were like thousands upon thousands of years before Christianity and Islam.
But
They just said Judaism was 15 million.
We have to remember Judaism for the majority of its history is like people who were Jewish. Like they not converting, like it was like their own group of people. Whereas Muslims and Christians, like we convert and like spread and even convert.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying before. They don't really let you convert, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought for I guess majority of the history. I think that's like more of a kind of like a modern thing. I'm sure there's like a significant amount of Muslims that were like because the global population in general just spiked like in this past 100+ years.
Orthodox Jews. Orthodox Jews believe that the Torah is the direct word of God, and they strictly follow its words and commandments. The best known Orthodox Jews are the Hasidic Jews, due to their recognizable and distinct fashion, which has been appropriated by hipsters. There is also Reform, Conservative and Reconstructionist Judaism, who all cover a wide range of beliefs, from not believing in a personal or supernatural God and thinking ritual and ceremony have no place in the modern world, to believing in God and the Torah, but changing their interpretations as society evolves. Shabbat, or the Sabbath, or Saturday, is the 7th day of the Hebrew week, and the most important day for Jews. Since God rested on the 7th day, Jews do the same. It is a day of physical and spiritual rejuvenation. Jewish law prohibits any work on Shabbat. Activities such as doing business, spending money, shopping, housework, driving, using electricity, or even using the phone are discouraged, while things like prayer or reading are encouraged.
Like I hear stories for some people that actually follow it, they won't even use the elevator. They'll have to take the stairs because they can't use electricity. They can't use electricity.
Why not electricity?
They just said.
Oh, because it costs money, I guess.
Just because it's dedicated to worship, so they can't use electricity. They can't drive cars.
Yeah.
So they can't even use the elevator. They have to
Can't
take
use
the
their
stairs.
phone.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's pretty crazy.
Kosher regulate the Jewish diet. What is kosher? Well, according to the Torah and Jewish law, all vegetables, fruits, grains, and nuts are kosher. When it comes to meat, a kosher animal is one that both chews its cud and has a cloven hoof. Don't worry, I didn't know what cud was either. Cud is a bit of food that an animal chews and then swallows and then vomits back into their mouth and then chews it again, which is why some animals kind of just appear to be chewing all the time. Examples of kosher animals are cattle and sheep, while non-kosher animals include pigs, dogs, rabbits, and humans
race?
actually. Kosher animals must also be killed in a certain way, called shahita. This method uses a trained professional.
Same thing Islamically for halal food, if you've ever heard. There's a very specific way to slaughter the animal for it to be considered, as a biha halal.
Yeah. And Muslims, we can eat kosher food as well.
Yeah.
So the way that we can, if something's kosher, Muslims are allowed to eat it because we're allowed to eat from the people of the book, from Jewish and Christian people.
Yeah.
With an incredibly sharp knife to deliver a quick death to the animal. Finally, all the blood must be drained from the animal because blood isn't kosher. Today, kosher food can be bought from kosher shops or recognized by special kosher symbols on products. All shellfish, birds of prey like eagles or owls, and fish without both fins and scales like sharks, whales, and porpoises are not kosher. From the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE until today, the synagogue has been the center of Jewish life and worship. In every synagogue, you'll find a handwritten Torah scroll, which is read aloud during services. You'll also find a rabbi. A rabbi is a trained Jewish scholar and interpreter of Jewish law. They conduct many Jewish events such as circumcisions, bar and bat mitzvahs, weddings, and funerals. While there, you may notice some people wearing a kippah, also known as a yarmulke, on their heads. Judaism originated in the Middle East, where a sign of respect to God is to cover one's head. Orthodox Jews believe that they are always in the presence of God, so they wear a kippah at all times, while more liberal Jews wear a kippah sometimes. You might also notice that many Orthodox Jews have long curly hair on the sides of their head. These are called peyot, and Orthodox Jews do not cut the hair because of a command in the Torah that says, "Ye shall not round the corner of your heads." So those are the basics of Judaism. It isn't even close to covering everything. I probably only covered about 1%. One video simply can't cover everything. Religions are too diverse, too deep, and mean too many different things to different people. But you can find all the...
I mean, Judaism and Islam, the core beliefs are pretty similar. Obviously, with stuff like dressing, like the way they dress and some aspects of their creed is different, but a lot of the main beliefs, because it is an Abrahamic faith, is very similar.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I agree. It's very interesting, the similarities between Judaism and Islam, even through their prayers, their belief about God, how to treat animals, for slaughtering and things like
and
this.
the first commandment, only one God.
Yeah.
They don't believe in the Trinity. There's no equal. There's no triunity.
And I know that in Protestant Christianity, there's not really a different level of sin. All sin is sin, equal. But in Judaism and Islam, obviously the worst sin is blasphemy. So I will, it'd be interesting to study more of the similarities between both of the faiths.
Yeah. Hey guys, thanks for watching our video. Assalamu alaikum.
Shalom alaikum.